Welcome, Horror Fam, to HHN 365, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast. My name is Mike, and as always, I'm here with my co-hosts, Duff, Jess, and Jonathan. How you guys holding up?
You know, we're just waiting for stuff, but good, I guess. Yeah.
Announce something, please. We just keep poking the HHN Twitter with a stick.
Right?
Do something. Do something.
Something gonna happen. Something gonna happen. As always, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at HHN365, and we have a TikTok at HHN365pod. We have a Discord that you can join us in. That link is in the description, and we have a merch shop at HHN365.com. You can always leave us a voicemail at 407-906-4134. On today's show, we are going to talk about some recent HHN 32 rumors, as always, this time of season, and list our favorite HHN facades.
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
I have a lot.
I do too. Yeah. I forget the facades. Like, I was trying to make this list, and I honestly can't remember a lot of the facades past like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I
Kind
get
of all
it.
blend together.
My memory kind of sucks, so I get it.
It's a very recent bias on my list.
It's all that. We do have some updates. We talked about the first two last week, and one. The day this is dropping, Tuesday, March 21st. Today, 5 p.m., we will be having an HHN 36 live. If you don't know, that's going to be our live TikTok series we do at Universal Studios Florida. We're going to start over at Finnegan's and just kind of walk around the park, and whether that is on TikTok chatting with you, or if you want to come see us in person, where we have a special sticker that you can only receive during 36 Live. We will be chatting with you guys and answering questions and talking about HHN and kind of whatever else you want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what else do we have coming up? We have a lot of stuff coming up.
Yeah, we do. Also on Saturday, April 8th at 8 p.m., we are bringing back HHN Live Trivia. That's going to be at Half Rail Beer Project just down the road from the Universal Orlando Resort. We had a great time and turnout and experience. What was that? The September 1st or something like that?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Opening week of HHN 31. It was an amazing time, and we look forward to doing it again. And we will have a nice special surprise, probably, that we'll talk about next week for you.
Fun little tidbits on this one.
Yeah.
A lot of little fun nuggets.
But another big one, and this is going to be for today, the day you're listening to the episode, March 21st at noon, our next merch drop.
Yeah,
we have a few new items dropping. We do. I mean, we can say what it is now, basically.
Yeah, right? We have two really cool items.
So we have, if you're in on the H joke, basically, for Hell Block Horror, that Jonathan has been going on forever, and that has really transferred over to 365. We're making a shirt for it, and it's kind of a Q is for Quan is for Quandary joke.
Kind of, it is a Q is for Quandary.
That is literally what it is.
It exactly
it's
is.
Very subtle. It's a subtle reference.
Now, yes, very subtle. You would never know. And then a more serious, phenomenal piece of art we're putting on a shirt for Bugs Eaten Alive. And it has a great front side, a little pocket logo, and then a back side as well. And they're both phenomenal. You can check both of those out on Twitter in one sense. If you're listening today, you can see Bugs on Twitter. If you want to see both promo videos, got to go to our Discord today. Otherwise, you got to wait a day to see the H one.
And Duff, what makes Bugs so special?
What makes
what was it designed?
I know, Mike. I can help Duff out since he seemed to have forgotten.
Jess, what makes our Bug shirt so special?
So our BzzCon shirt was actually designed by a special member of the community who is arguably the biggest Bugs Eaten Alive fan. And there was nobody else who could probably design this better. Potter, which is at Pots and Pens Art on Twitter. Pots and then the letter N. They're fantastic. They killed the shirt. Like, honestly, absolutely. It's gorgeous. Like, I'm not even gonna lie.
Hands down, our most intricate shirt we have ever released.
And just there's one more fun thing we're releasing that is also on the shirt, but you can find somewhere else on our shop.
Yeah. I mean, should we tell them, or is that a surprise they have to go on the website to find out?
Okay, if you want to do it like that, we can do
No,
it
no,
like.
no, 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 no. I'll tell them. I
Well, go
mean,
ahead, by all
no,
means.
no, no, no. I mean, obviously go to hhn365.com. That's where you can find all of these items now that they're all live as of noon on the 21st. But we have designed, well, Potter designed something for us. On the front of the shirt, you'll see the Exterminator bottle with B-side. We also offer that now as an air freshener for your car with fresh pine scent.
Oh,
So
fresh pine scent.
if you want to get that, rep your Bug House, HHN Pride, your B-side Pride, whatever. Support us, support Potter. You can get an air freshener now for your car.
And once you see the artwork for this, you will want it. This is the most adorable B-side I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It's so cute.
They absolutely killed both of these designs. So.
Yeah. Oh my god. I love this little mini drop that we're doing. But also, so now if you're listening to this today, we're doing the pre-order thing again because we are having live trivia. Shipping is always free if you guys just want to buy it and get it, but be advised it is a pre-order. We're gonna be placing the orders a week from not today, actually it'd be a week from Wednesday. So it'd be the 29th. No, yeah, right. The 29th at midnight, we're going to cut off the pre-orders if you want to receive it at trivia. You can still order after then. It'll just ship to you once we get it. But if you want to get it on the 8th, we will have it if you're in Orlando local. We're not going to be doing theme park pickup right now, probably closer to HHN, but we can still ship it out to you if you want that.
Yeah. Free shipping. Take advantage.
Yeah. Oh my God. And also, I mean,
even better, meet us at trivia. Just saying.
I will say if you are interested in both Bugs items, you do get a little discount if you pick up the shirt and the freshener.
Mm-hmm.
And the freshener is on its route to us, right? So it's going to be a little bit delayed on the shipping of that, right? Unlike the shirts.
I don't believe so. No, I think we should have them in time for trivia. They might be, if they get delayed, it might be like a day or two. But right now, based on the time frame, we should be good for trivia to have.
Awesome, cool.
So yeah.
And we always do prefer if you just want to come by it at trivia and meet us, they're all for sale there. So
yeah,
just saying, that's great
we will
too.
Be selling everything in person,
and we do have stock of other stuff. Just going to be sitting there. Just saying, Pumpkin Lord, Gourd Lord. I mean,
oh sorry, no. Oh, who's Pumpkin Lord?
Who's that?
Pump Daddy.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to news and rumors. Jonathan, this is your segment now. Let's get it.
Yeah, here we go. There has been a hell of a lot of rumors, ups and downs, craziness this week, and I did my best to sort of organize it a little bit. And the latest rumor/construction update it happened just like 2 days ago, and that is that by the MIB tent location, near the Men in Black ride, construction walls have been put up. And a lot of people have looked at that and said, hey, does that mean 11th house? I'm not going to lie. The first time I looked at that, I'm like, well, why else would there be construction walls there? Because I have HHN on my brain 24/7. But then a couple of insiders have sort of commented on the idea of 11 houses, because if you guys know, we talked about before, we already have 10 permits. We have not gotten a permit for the MIB tent as of yet, or at least no one has found it yet. So Legacy commented on it and said, we haven't seen permits to install the tent. We haven't seen permits to build an 11th house. We also know the queue for Sprung 2 likely has to go around Men in Black again because of construction in Kid Zone. So it looks like Legacy, trusted insider, does not think it's for 11th house. And Alicia Stella, who we don't talk about often on this show, but she is a very well-known insider for all things Universal, not just HHN, commented on Inside Universal and stated that she also has heard that this year we'll only have 10 houses, or we'll have 10 houses and will not have 11. So let's get into sort of, I guess, our speculation here, because no one really knows what this construction exactly is for. What do we think the walls put up by the MIB tent location are for? Do we think it's for an 11th house, or do we think it's for something unrelated, or maybe it's something related to HHN but not a house itself?
The short answer, I don't think it's an 11th house. That many insiders are saying it, I'll tend to buy it. Two, I would have been skeptical in the first place.
Mhm.
I mean, option A literally could have nothing to do with HHN. It is still March. So if they're putting up other things, um, there's plenty of time for that to then go down, or whether it still be up, whatever the case may be. Option B, if it is for HHN, you had the raised platforms last year. Maybe they're building a more expansive and not permanent. That's not the word I'm looking for, but
A
more
sturdier option that's not plywood and carpet
exactly. Yes,
and waterproof,
yes,
because that was the main issue. They were kind of like dry rotting
exactly.
and molding last year. They
So
look like
having
big plastic pieces. Yeah.
yeah, basically. So basically, are they doing the raised walkways again right now, or are they doing a better version of that? I think that is the more likely option
Mm-hmm.
than an 11th house. And then again, maybe something even not related to HHN. Because a big thing to point out there is that there's not a permit. Like they
Mm-hmm.
cannot start building before there is a permit, which technically I guess they haven't started building. So unless a permit pops out like tomorrow and they start building immediately after, but usually that thing's ready to go before they are even staging equipment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking to one of my friends about this, about what could this mean, about permits and whatnot. And they did say that apparently last year with Fast and Furious, we didn't get a permit until a little bit after they started putting things up. And I don't remember exactly, but I think that's accurate because I remember we saw things like getting ready and tents being put up, but nothing actually was official until a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
So this could be a similar case, but I
So
doubt that. I really don't think this is an 11th house.
can
I
we
think
confirm that there was actually nothing out, or we didn't find the permit till after?
maybe we didn't
Mm.
find it. It could
Because
be
if
that
we
because I
don't,
guess people didn't really know what to look for.
for years we had a permit bot that was pretty active and that caught everything as it came out. That doesn't exist right now. So it's people literally looking for it. So
Yeah,
I
it
do
could.
wonder, is it because I'm pretty sure that's not legal, and I don't think Universal would risk building something before the permits for it to be built are there.
Mhm.
I don't know. So, like, I don't know if we want to look that far into it. I don't want to, but was this a case of the permit was out and we just didn't find it?
I
Potentially.
From what I talked about, they said they didn't think it was out, but it also could be just people didn't know. Like it could be a misremembering thing. It could be we didn't know what to look for at that time, and then someone found it later. But yeah, let's move on to the next little segment here, and that is dedicated completely to the insider legacy. We have a lot of information that I'm going to break down for you guys. And the first one is a continuation of what he was saying previously about Sprung 2. And it's a direct quotation, so I'm just going to read it. And it's basically if the queue for Sprung 2 goes around Men in Black, the only way to queue for an MIB tent house would be around through Fear Factor, which would mean they can't use it for a show, which is another example of why MIB tent house is very unlikely because I would assume they'd want to use Fear Factor for a show this year. But the I'd say one of the biggest pieces of a speculation that rocked Twitter last week was Legacy going right on Twitter, no clues or anything. Like he kind of just stated it, saying that the property Demon Slayer is rumored for this year's Halloween Horror Nights. He followed this up with a lot of other things that sort of that don't debunk it because he never debunked it. It's still technically right now a rumor for Halloween Horror Nights. But basically, he followed this up saying that this year he believes that Universal might be doing code names for the houses like they usually do, to hide what the houses are to insiders and alike. But instead of using things they have in the past, like appliances, saying like a house is a stove or something to hide it, he believes that they're using IPs as the code names. So his example, which isn't anything accurate, he said this was completely an example for let's say a clown related house. They could have one department think that that it's it because it would be called it, right? An IP that an IP that people want to see. Another department could say Terrifier. Another department could say Killer Clowns. So that would be a way to confuse people, mix things up, and possibly cause rumors among insiders to be all over the place, which it seems like they have been lately. So let's talk about this, right? First, what do we think about Demon Slayer being rumored for this year? Are we all under the same consensus that I am, that it's probably a code name for something else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems likely.
There's no way this is coming to the event.
I know less than nothing about this besides the fact that, like, I know it's super popular, but like it just doesn't seem like something that they would pick up in this, specifically this year. I don't know. It just makes no sense to me. So like I was seeing a lot of people say different things, but that this is 100% a code name.
Not in the States. I could see this like being at
in Japan,
Osaka.
Oh, for sure.
But I don't see this in the States.
I know it's huge over here. Like I know that there's a huge following. I know a bunch of people who love this property, but like it's not for us.
It's just not. I just have never seen them do something like this. Not to say that they may not. In the future, I mean, anime is becoming way more mainstream than it ever has been. But it's just not something that has happened yet. And until it does, I'm going to remain skeptical that it's mainstream enough to be released as an HHN IP.
Agreed.
Yeah, and not even just that, but also the fact that it would be, I mean, the first house ever based completely on animation, right? And I feel like that would be so difficult to translate. Like properly. You can do, it can be done for sure, but they'd have to be like, I don't know. It feels like it's a lot harder to translate animated things and put them into a real life environment compared to live action things, where that kind of, you already have the blueprint there, but animation, you kind of have to figure out what would this look like in real life, and that takes probably a lot of extra work on, the creative's part to make that a reality.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what would come to everyone's head first is kind of fur character style characters, right? And that's all you'd have. And how does that usually come out? You think Disney and Universal and examples of animated characters, does that fit with HHN?
No.
That's just
no. Yeah.
Which is not saying the property couldn't work, but you'd have to take a different angle.
We could argue one thing, that like there is one property that is all fursuit people that people are begging to come.
Yes.
I'm just saying. I know it's very different. This is apples and oranges, but Five Nights at Freddy's is all characters that are in costume characters.
But they're also designed to already look like that.
Yes.
I know. I'm just saying that they could do it and people could suspend disbelief. We do it all the time. We know we're not actually in danger in a haunted house.
No, I mean, but I think the thing is, do they want to take on that task of trying to train?
No.
I'm not sure they would do fur characters. Couldn't they just do face characters?
From what I've seen, that'd be tough.
I know nothing about this property.
I've never watched an episode of this. Is it a TV series? Is it a movie?
It's a TV series.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And
I think they did have a movie, but it's mainly a TV series.
I've seen stills of it, and it very much seems like any sort of animated characters, monsters, that kind of thing.
Okay, but Googling it, I'm like barely getting monsters. It's like the same 4 people.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big, even people who watch the show are like there's not a lot of actual horror elements in this show, apparently.
Is this the one with the girl that walks around with the thing in her mouth?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, it's coming up on Google. I've seen a bunch of like cosplayers do it at cons, and it makes me uncomfortable.
I don't know.
Nothing. It's fine.
I will watch it if it's officially announced.
For sure.
No, sorry.
I'm sorry if you are a fan of Demon Slayer. We're not shitting on it. We just really are not educated.
We get asked, like I would say weekly, if we would ever think that anime could come to the event. We're just not necessarily. That's just not our thing. I think definitely our listeners love anime. They're a huge following. It's just not something we've ever. The 4 of us. I'm not. I mean, I guess I'm speaking for. I know I'm speaking for Duff, and I know I'm speaking for myself. and you alluded to it, Jess. I don't know, Jonathan, are you into anime in any way?
No, I could never get into it. I mean, the closest thing I would say to anime would be like something like Teen Titans, but that's not necessarily like, what you think of when you think
Mhm.
of anime.
Yeah.
It's more of it's more mainstream than, than
Yeah.
what you think of when you think of anime stuff.
Well, you
Closest I
guys,
have watched is
no,
Avatar: The Last Airbender, but that's American.
Mm.
It's
yeah,
American
Yeah.
to be anime style, so that is the closest I have gotten to watching anime.
I've
So,
watched a couple episodes of that actually. That's why I laughed. I was like, oh my god, yeah, I have done that.
I mean, it's great.
But anyone who's listening who does know about Demon Slayer or is an anime fan, you know what you can do to tell us that we're wrong? Leave us a voicemail.
Exactly.
And I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will.
Please leave us a voicemail if you think that this is a good property to come because I want to hear about it.
Yeah, same.
So,
Same.
Jonathan, what are some of the rumors about what Demon Slayer could be? What's going on there?
Well, so I mean, a lot of people have come up with different ideas. Some were like, "Oh, maybe this is related to the rumored Japanese creature's house." It would make sense as like a code name type thing. But Legacy stated on the Horror Night Nightmares Discord server something that I don't like. And he basically said, "What if Demon Slayer is a code name for exorcist?" And
Makes a lot of
this
sense.
this doesn't just feel like a property like out of the blue either, because we know on Hollywood spec map that Exorcist was rumored for their coast. So all of a sudden it's like I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh no, like wait a minute, is this gonna be a dual coast type thing?
Yeah, for sure. The Exorcist train seems to be running full steam ahead.
Boo.
Yeah.
I would hope it would be based off the new one at least, so we get something different.
It doesn't release until October 13th. I'm literally looking it up right now.
I mean, there have been situations where A&D has got, information ahead of time before something is
True.
released to make it work. But there have been
That's true.
situations where that's not fully the case as well. So we
Leslie
can hope
Odom
it's
Jr. is in the new one. Ooh.
When does the new film drop? Did you guys just say that?
October 13th.
Okay.
I wonder, maybe it's getting pushed up, like they know something and we don't, potentially. I don't know. It's not, but
No.
I'm just saying.
I mean, I could see them, again, they get a pre-screen, all the details they need, shit like that to make it work.
Has that happened before where they have had a house that was like spoilery that would spoil a movie that doesn't release until
that Dracula film? What was it called? Dracula Untold?
Dracula
Yeah.
Untold.
Yeah.
But there's been
That
other
was before it was
IPs.
released.
I can't since
more.
I've been
There has been
going.
more. That's not the only example. I just can't
It's
think
not
of it.
AHS. I know that. What maybe was it? It wasn't straight. Maybe it was Stranger Things because I think that came out. I think
No.
season 3.
Stranger Things 3 came out July 4th.
Summer. Yeah.
But they would have already been in production of it, so they probably saw it early.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
like,
No,
They probably saw it
we
in
didn't
advance.
see it early, but yeah.
I'm saying it.
No,
but
there,
we saw it.
but
I'm
there
saying-
was something. I just can't think of what it was.
I'm pretty
I
sure
swear.
there's several more examples of this.
where it
For
was
some
at
reason,
the
shitty
event.
Dracula Untold's the only one that came out.
Maybe it was one of the Blumhouse movies in there or
Like,
something.
we got scenes in the house that we saw spoilers.
Mhm.
Not the creative.
I'm pretty sure.
General public.
Oh, wasn't it in the Saw one in 2017, the Jigsaw scene? Because Jigsaw hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
I believe that the
That might
trap
be
was
right,
like a scene from it. The one with like the saw. I know definitely in Hollywood, I'm pretty sure they got like a full scene.
Regardless, this has happened before, and it wouldn't be unprecedented.
Yeah.
It's still one of those things where when it happens, you're like, are you getting all the info you need, or is it kind of like you're winging it on some loose stuff you've been told?
Oh, absolutely. It could just be like what if, like it wasn't like an official tweet or anything. It was just like some comment in Discord. So it could just be like, what if Demon Slayer means exorcist because Demon Slayer, it could just not be anything that serious.
But it's
I
also
will
the
say though,
first
no
time
matter,
we've seen it dropped. I will say that.
and it's just like either way this property went, I don't like it. Like if it went the original way, I don't know what they could do to make it any different from the past one besides switching scenes around. Exorcist is very much known for you're in one room. That's the movie. You can't really change it up that much. And if they did a new one, I I've never experienced one like I never experienced a Dracula Untold, but I really don't like the idea of going into an IP house not having watched the property, but just watch the property like be spoiled in front of me. Like I don't know. That doesn't sound like something I would enjoy at all.
Yeah, and I know the whole like take beyond that is if you have to watch the IP to enjoy the house, it's not a good house. Whatever. I don't fully agree with that take, and if I can't see it and I don't understand the nuances, I'm probably going to enjoy it less.
I
I mean,
always
if you're the general public that is just visiting once and seeing the house once, maybe that applies. But I'm going to see it many, many times before I see the movie, and I'm going to pick up on a lot more that's not going to make sense and maybe not hit right. So
And there's
it's
probably
important
cases if
that
they can't.
I know the property.
hmm And there's probably cases like they can't show. I assume they wouldn't be able to show like super big spoilery scenes. Like I'm sure they can spoil a lot, but I'm sure like if there's a big twist or something or a big moment that happens, I would doubt they'd be allowed to show that. Like before the movie's out, and like granted, it's Horror Nights. Like, does it really matter to like spoiling that in a Horror Nights house? But I don't know. I feel like there'd be rules like, oh, this big thing that happens in the movie that's a big moment in the movie. Can't show it. Have to do something else because we don't want to spoil that for people or something like that.
Yeah. So where's the climax in the house at that point? Kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Because you would assume that's usually going to be a big twist or, the big action or climax moment in general. So if you can't do that, that's missing a lot.
Yep. And how different we'll find out, but like how different is the new movie actually going to be from the original too? I know I think if I don't know if remember if it's a remake or a requel or whatever they're doing, but I'd assume anything with Exorcist, a lot of it is just going to be someone in a bedroom. I mean, I'd like for them to prove me wrong. I really would, but knowing how requels tend to or whatever reboots tend to thrive off the nostalgia of what was popular before, I'd assume that a lot of the scenes are gonna just be remember The Exorcist when this happened. Like I'd assume a lot of that's gonna happen.
Well, we'll figure out a month and a half into the event, regardless of if it's
Absolutely.
coming or not. So
All right, so moving on, we have another piece of info from Legacy. Man, we got a lot of stuff from Legacy today, and that is that he specifically stated on Inside Universal that the rumor of the It House coming to Halloween Horror Nights that was circling around was completely made up by insiders to protect an IP. So, for all of you guys hoping it was coming, it's probably not. So
we warned you, day of.
No,
we did.
It's not. Warner Brothers wants to do the Horror Made Here event again eventually. They're going to hold on to their shit for a little longer, at least.
I don't quite understand what that means. Why insiders would want to protect an IP, like why they would leak false information to try to protect something else when these insiders leak IP. I don't quite understand the games that are being played.
It is strange, but does it come down to they know the things that are coming, but it's too early to like safely come out publicly, where they're risking like actually getting in trouble and busted.
Then don't say anything at all.
But they want to be the ones to break it, So if it's starting to slowly come out, they can try to tease it and go around it and confuse people.
But why does releasing something that's clearly not going to come to the event
Because it takes you away
that doesn't pass the sniff test?
It's a red herring.
That's it.
I don't know.
There's red herring. But okay,
this isn't the glass onion.
Here.
Like this.
No, to play devil's advocate, there are red herrings on every single spec map, and Legacy's clues are intended to confuse us. People are just solving them faster than ever, and things are releasing earlier than ever. So from me, taking what I would feel like if I was one of these people who was announcing things, I'd be more worried about like, I guess not things pulling because of the contract signed, but just more worried of like potentially what could happen if something gets out in January, in December. Then potentially we're going to go into November at that point with things releasing, because things are being released in February now ahead of time, way before they should have been. So I kind of understand the panic. I don't love what happens with it. We get all of these really confusing fucking rumors, but I understand it to an extent. You're kind of worried because these are like uncharted territories. We've never been this early.
I get
It's
what you're saying.
definitely
I think
another
that-
reason.
Go ahead.
You
Sorry.
know, we always say on the podcast, you know, always take what insiders say like with a grain of salt.
Right.
Even if like they have historically been known to be accurate, you know, a lot of the time, because I mean stuff like this can happen too, you know. Not everything they say is set in stone, and sometimes that like this it's on purpose, you know. It's on because they anticipate that everyone's going to think whatever they say is 100% true. They can do this because people just will buy it, you know, and then it can, you know, be a red herring and or save time or extend things or anything like that.
And even when you're talking directly about legacy, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, that he even said like he was directly asked to like go with it for a bit, go with the property, until he finally came out and was like, yeah, it's not coming. You know what I mean? Like he directly even said like he was asked by other insiders to play along and let's keep this a hidden thing, which he sort of did and then fully blew up eventually. But
yeah, he just completely went, nope, sorry.
So like again, even like the most trusted insiders, like they do have a lot of the bigger ones do have a connection with each other and will work together and help each other out in ways too, for an extended period of time that has an end date apparently. But
So I guess what everything you're saying is any of these rumors in the early season, we should just take them with a giant grain of salt.
I would say
Because some of it is pure, just like
not
pure games.
Not to give anyone more credit than others, but if you look at the clues that are being made and the hints that are being given and the stuff that is being dropped, I don't think Legacy has been directly dropping anything to hide stuff. He may be playing along and follow-ups and stuff, but he's not directly dropping misinformation. So I'm just saying, if you want to stay clear from more of the misdirects and the hidden stuff, maybe just kind of see what the way that Legacy acts about them and approaches them might be a good hint to whether it's legit or not.
Yeah, and so far, you know, we obviously don't know anything behind the scenes or whatever, but so far, all of his clues, the ones that were wrong, he has said specifically either pulled or like I think he just said everyone that was not accurate or like assuming to be not accurate. Everything rumors like the Devil Dogs one, and I think there were a couple others too. I think the Japanese creatures one as well. He's like, yeah, it was planned or something happened and then it went away. You know, it seemed like it wasn't intended as like as a misdirect or anything. It just things were planned and you know things don't work out.
I mean, didn't he just straight up say Demon Slayer is coming to the event?
Well,
no,
but he said it. But then he also said it, followed it up by
immediately
followed up by like it's rumored to be coming to the event, but
he
here's
specified what he meant.
This is what I mean by that. Okay,
exactly. He wasn't, you know, like I don't think he had that initial Demon Slayer tweet up for more than like 5 minutes until he posted the second tweet where it's like, okay, now let me explain a little bit more.
I mean by that. Okay, so that was like, this is why this year is so crazy. I'm going to drop something that's crazy, and I'm going to explain.
And he dropped a whole thread about like why you probably shouldn't get excited about Demon Slayer
or much of the other crazy.
It was a really good thread. You should go read it. I know we quote
Godzilla and It and all these others.
Really good.
There's just no point that we're saying.
Everybody needs to remember, take it with a grain of salt. It's spec season. That's the whole point. It's rumor and speculation. And also, we never get the entire lineup ahead of time on the first 3 volumes of spec maps. And we're only on volume 1. So everybody breathe, please.
I feel like the only year that we had mostly things figured out was because of the pandemic.
Yeah. Going from 2020 to 2021, all being HHN 30, we knew 9 properties definitively. Yeah. And it took us to April at the latest to figure out case files.
I was gonna say, yeah. Well, I think we were
Maybe
thinking
May, something like
Creep
that.
Show for a long time.
Yeah, for a bit.
We were still thinking it was Creep Show, and
But still, it came out relatively early to know all 10 for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so should we move on to the last rumor here?
Let's do it.
From Legacy specifically. He, I don't know how to explain this. It's going to sound kind of weird, but basically he posted a very vague tweet on Twitter. It didn't have a caption. I think he posted a tweet. He posted a GIF before this tweet, and then he deleted it, and then he posted another GIF and said, "Oh, this one's a better description of what I'm trying to convey with this hint." And it's just a GIF of Ellie. I think that's her name from The Last of Us, but it's the video game Ellie. It's not from the show. And that was it. There was no other thing to that. But someone on Discord, on the Horror Night Nightmares Discord, basically asked him, hey, is this hint that you just tweeted out here good or bad for people who want to see The Last of Us at HHN? And the only thing he commented, the only response he gave was, which Last of Us? So, what do we think this means, guys? We don't. This is this is all the information we have on this little hint clue type thing.
There are two versions of Last of Us, obviously, with the TV series or the video game.
There are also 2 games of The
There are
Last
also
of Us.
That is true.
But still, that would come down to, are we talking game or TV series?
Yeah. Did we
And
talk about that last week too?
Yes, we've talked about it for a few weeks, I think.
Okay.
There have been strong rumors from other insiders as well, publicly coming out saying game, maybe, and hinting at game. So, I don't know. This feels like it's leaning that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, the game I feel like would be cheaper, right? For the IP than the show.
Yeah, I'd say
And
so.
then I feel like they have more creative freedom, and then the game also has more infected just because you're fighting them. It's a little different. Like, I know people have complained that the show is slow. I don't really agree with that, but whatever. Yeah, I think that the game could be the way to go. It also means that, creative and makeup and costuming and everything, they can kind of not do their own interpretation, but it gives them a little more wiggle room than like being screen accurate.
Right. And it definitely, I can see where people are saying the show is slow in the terms of if they went to watch The Last of Us for a bunch of monsters, which I get why you'd want to watch The Last of Us for a bunch of monsters. That's all I knew about The Last of Us before I watched the show. I was kind of shocked how little monsters there were.
That's fair.
But like you said, like the game solves that, which that problem, like we said before, can be addressed anyways. They could just add monsters if they did the show. Like, that's not hard. But the game already solves that problem, which there is already monsters in every location, different types of monsters, different type of creatures. And it's, while you can make the show work, the game, I don't even think you need to play with it a lot either. Like, you don't even need to play with it that much compared to the show. Like, it's already there, like it's the house is already sort of, they probably can like play the game like, yeah, I have a good idea of what the house is going to be just from playing it.
And if you use the game, you don't have to worry about the likeness of, say, a major star like Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, and then you don't have the Beetlejuice effect where you can't
Exactly.
get half the fucking characters.
When you get a property, you don't just automatically get all the characters' likeness with it.
No,
That's not how it works.
a lot of actors own their likenesses,
Yes.
and you have to pay the royalties on that to use
And
them.
I'd assume someone like Pedro Pascal, probably on that.
For sure.
So, I mean, talking about the Beetlejuice effects, kind of a little related to that. We know that the big rumor last year was that Horror Nights was supposed to get the Last of Us show, and it got replaced by Descent of Destruction. The show got delayed; they couldn't use it. Whatever. If this is, if this rumor is true, or if we're reading this hint right, and the game is in fact coming instead of the show, it almost feels like this is HHN giving a big middle finger to Warner Brothers. It's like, oh, we're gonna use The Last of Us, but we're not gonna use your show though. We're gonna go around you and use the game. And does that mean, like, could that mean something in relation to, like, they're just, because I know I'm going around, but I know we talked about way earlier in a couple podcasts ago about how HHN could possibly just be really pissed at Warner Brothers for what happened last year with Last of Us being delayed, and then Evil Dead Rise being delayed, and creating the magnificent piece of art that was Hellblock Horror. In reaction to that. So could this be HHN just being like, we're done with Warner Brothers, either for this year or for future years? Because I don't know, just going around them and getting the game is kind of, I don't know, funny from our perspective.
Isn't
This
The
is-
Exorcist Warner Brothers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like that relationship has always been weird, strained, but like
But money talks.
Mhm.
but strong enough that they're always
Money talks for anything, though.
right.
So
Is
Yeah.
the new one Warner
Are you saying-
Brothers?
But I'm saying
let me check.
money talks is there a big discrepancy in money that they want for Exorcist versus what they want for Last of Us?
Probably.
You know what I
I
mean?
mean,
Are they just asking way too much for certain properties?
I thought the new
it's
Exorcist
Blumhouse.
was
It's
Blumhouse.
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 Universal
So that would
owns the
be
new one.
Universal. Okay.
So
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
they bought the
yeah.
rights.
You're right.
They did. They did. It's listed on the movie and everything.
So yeah, if it's the new one,
Yeah.
then yeah, I'm wrong.
So it probably is the new one then.
It
be
more
fair.
most
It
likely
has-
is the
yeah.
new one.
Oh wait. Okay. So question: could The Exorcist? Oh, we already talked about this. Have a third property in the Blumhouse house instead of having its own.
I mean, I would prefer that.
I mean, we all, I think, would arguably, but does that space lend itself to a 3-part house? Is the question.
We're assuming they're going to use that space.
I mean, I would assume so. It's also on the spec map. I think is in that spot as well still, but that's probably just assuming from last year.
Mm.
I don't know. The last time they did a 3-part Blumhouse house, it was in MIB.
Yeah, I mean that was a very big space. I recall,
Mhm.
especially the Black Phone portion being quite long. You could definitely squeeze in one or two if you just add like a little facade area and be like, oh, now you're into the new area. You could easily probably squeeze 3 into that. It was a very long house, that last one.
I know this wasn't liked when Hollywood did it. When Hollywood, basically the Black Phone part of Hollywood's Blumhouse last year was like a teaser. Like it was nothing. It was like 3 rooms. But to be honest, if the rumored properties are correct and it's Megan, Insidious, and Exorcist, I wouldn't mind just Exorcist kind of being there at the end and like 2 or 3 scenes as like a teaser for the movie. Because
Yeah.
it's not like they can, it'd be a movie that hasn't even come out yet. So in that instance, I would be okay if it's just like 1 or 2 rooms of just like the bedroom or something.
That would make a lot more sense, right?
Yeah, I like that.
If it's just, we're going to give you some, essentially a trailer for the new movie coming out. We're going to give you a couple of fun scenes that maybe even scenes that we've already seen from the trailer.
I swear they have done that before. Like Beyond Saw, I know there's a house where they've done this. And I can't think of it right now. It's driving me crazy. But so if you remember, hey, let us know. Send us a message. Send us a voicemail. Probably screaming at us right now.
All right. Anything else to add before we move on?
A last super vague sentence I wrote down here, and that last week it could be related to any of the things we talked about. Going down the list, but nothing was ever said or pointed to. But basically, last week, a lot of insiders were just screaming chaos. Like something happened. Nobody knows what it was, but change. Like something changed, or there was chaos, or like there was a lot of just chatter for like a day or two that something happened. We don't know what that means. It could mean the relationship to we finally figured out what the clues or what the code names meant. But it also could mean maybe something pulled out. Maybe something like something happened behind the scenes. Like I don't know. I don't know. Like what do you guys think this could mean? It's like a very vague question.
I don't know. It could be stuff going crazy, incorrect info. It could just have to do with all the protecting IPs and all that, and the code names. It's just simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. I hope it's not an IP pulled out, because I mean, it's early enough that there's there's not gonna be any huge problems in terms of replacing things.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do not want another Hellblock horror as much as even though we made a shirt on it. I don't want another one. I think that one's enough.
Please go buy the
Jonathan
shirt.
finally said
No.
it. Yes, buy the shirt.
All right. Well, I think we are finally done with our hour-long news and rumors. Let's hop into our main segment. These are our favorite facades, the facades that really stick into our mind. And these can be both outdoor and indoor facades, right? We're not
Yeah, no
going to
limitation.
specify.
Whatever you consider the facade.
Oh yeah.
Cool. All right. Who wants to start us off?
Okay, I guess I will. Sure.
Not everybody jump.
I have one.
Oh, go ahead. Then.
Okay. I suspect this is probably going to be on people's lists. The first one that comes to my mind of just like a killer facade is Universal Monsters Bride of Frankenstein Lives.
Yep.
This one we got at HHN Light. It was kind of like the facades were kind of because of the plexiglass and some of the other limitations. I feel like the facades at both of these facades were really kind of breathtaking in their own way. And I think they were kind of where they could really shine. And they kind of took the ball and ran with this one. It had a big storytelling element. Both of them did from HHN Light, but especially this one as well, where you've got a key part of the story. Amazing facade. I really enjoy this facade.
Oh yeah, and I think especially if you're considering coming around the corner with the video, like of the explosion itself, like that's a huge part where you're literally seeing the effects of that after. Has a nice scale to it. Also, it kind of sets a mood, right? Like, it's a very tragic story, and there's a lot of heartache in it, and it sets the tone right there, right off the bat.
Absolutely. Even the smell of just like burning, fire just like adds to the element of just like how sad this is. I remember like HHN, like everyone was like sort of like sad full HHN wasn't happening, but that we were getting houses. And I remember going through Tooth Fairy, the whole house, and I was kind of like, okay, whatever. I guess this is that one of that two houses, and I wasn't super blown away. I liked the facade, but I wasn't super blown away by the house. That's not a surprise. But walking into Bride of Frankenstein Lives right after as my second house, starting the HHN Light season, and seeing the buildup and then seeing that facade, like my jaw dropped to the floor, of how just immersive it was, how big it was, how when I saw it, especially since Tooth Fairy was relatively small in scale, the entire house was relatively small in scale, especially compared to a soundstage. When I walked in and saw Bride of Frankenstein, I'm like, all right, this is Halloween Horror Nights. Like, if we're gonna get two houses, I am so happy that this is one of the ones that we're keeping for this year.
Yeah, it was. This is the first house that Eugene and I got to take Eugene into, like, during Light or ever. He had never been to HHN before, and like I could only show him so much on YouTube for him to like understand something. And I just remember like him walking in front of me, and he kind of like turned around when we got to the facade and just looked at me and said, "What the fuck?" But it was like the most positive "what the fuck" I've ever heard. And I didn't put this on my list because I knew someone else was going to bring it up. But like, this is like a god tier facade. Like, yes. Honestly,
I'm surprised you guys it didn't end up on your list.
I knew it is, but like it's not, because I knew someone else was going to talk about it, and I had so many.
You, Jess, or I thought it was you or Jonathan or both.
That's fair. That's actually fair.
It was on my list, so.
Oh, there you go. All right. Well,
I actually have one that is also, it's actually unexpected, but it goes with yours
sure.
for me. I have Tooth Fairy on mine.
Oh, yeah. I have that in my
Hey-
honorable mentions.
Hey, Jess.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh, well, for me, I feel like it's shocking because I love to shit on that house.
Yeah.
I really do enjoy it. But I love that pop-up book.
It. The
It's so
movement,
good.
the kinetic energy it creates, the way it actually brings you into the story and the narration right off the bat, it's so unique. And it's not a massive scale or anything like that. It's
Yeah,
just, it looks good, it feels good, it's unique and fun.
it's right. And I kind of wish that Scary Tales had those, like, different variations. I kind of wish that that's what they had done with Scary Tales from the beginning, but we haven't, and that's okay. But, like, I wouldn't hate it if they brought back this kind of idea again for something like that.
I think even, if you get to the more moving parts, kind of, I think obviously this one's going to stay unique because it's like a pop-up storybook kind of thing. And I think that's always going to be its own thing. And I don't know if anything will ever be that again. So this will always be special in that front. But just look at
Exactly.
the movement it created and how exciting that makes it walking in without any actual characters. I think going that direction again would be awesome.
I hope.
Yeah, this one almost made my list. Just like you said, just because of how unique it is. I think it wasn't the best house ever. I think the facade was definitely the best part, but I think just because it was just so unexpected, it was just like unlike anything we've really ever seen before. I think that's why it almost made my list. Right.
And for me, the facade created like fear, especially doing it like as the first house I know that year. I didn't think the house was scary, but the actual buildup of with the book and the story and the haunting music that apparently was from Doctor Who, and the and I was like, oh, that's interesting when someone pointed out. I'm like, oh, it is. But the narration and the music and the buildup when you get and you see those designs of the Tooth Fairy, and it's like such a creepy design, of like a children's book, but it's like it everything moving and look, I don't know, like everything worked together to really instill fear in me. And I don't usually get that from facades. Facades, I usually am like, oh, it's pretty. I don't usually get, like little, I don't know, like anxious by looking at them. That one, at least on my first run, definitely did that to me. So that was absolutely that was a great facade.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go next because I do have one connecting point, as this was also mine as well. I did have another one that I did not actually enjoy as a house, but it still made my top facade list. And that is The Haunting of Hill House.
Almost went with it too.
I think, one, the scale's there, of course, but the building itself, the house is beautiful. The lighting is beautiful. They created the whole approach and the atmosphere from outside the house. And I know maybe it doesn't work best for what the story is and what you experience, but also hearing the lines that are delivered as well puts you in that location. I just think, as far as the facade goes, on its own, there are no wrong steps. They drilled it in every level.
See, I like the look at the facade. I think not only the look at the facade, but the way the way it changes. With the like you said with the lighting, how you get the lightning strikes, and you get the and the house goes from like I don't know, like it goes from like new to old. Sort of like with the way the lighting's shining on it a little bit. I do kind of wish they had maybe pulled a poltergeist and put some wind and some like light rain there. I think that would have fit really well. It had to be something like they just couldn't do it in that location. Maybe
with sound effects, they insinuated wind.
They insinuated wind, but I mean like poltergeist where it actually was.
There. Yeah.
You felt it, but I don't. The voices for me is. I think the design is a top tier house. The voices, they just took it out of it. Took me out of it. For me, honestly, I didn't like them so much in the sense of how like when I heard them initially, I'm like, oh, I know what this house is gonna be now, and it's not what I want. That sort of was like I can't put the facade on there, but the design was really good.
Yep.
Also, one of my honorable mentions that just didn't make it. All right, Jonathan, that
There we go.
leaves you.
Yeah. So let's see if I can fit one in that isn't okay. So I can do this one with a house I didn't necessarily love, but I think the facade was really solid. Pretty simple. I'd say simple but solid. And that's the Icons Captured facade. I think it. It always has the meaning of like the vine spell icons, but I think it just looked. It was not only just like a really good looking facade of being able to walk into the lantern, and having the media of the different icons play and walking on like the gravel, walking up to the facade, but also I think the music made it for me. Like, not only was design pretty cool and chaotic, but the music was like so pumping and energetic and got you ready for the house that it felt like even if I didn't know who, like, I have never experienced these icons before, that like now I'm experiencing them now and they're a big deal and this is crazy, and walking into the first time. So yeah, I'd say Icons Captured.
I mean, to me, it's a good facade. Didn't come close to cracking my list, but it is a good facade, and I think a lot of that for me is, again, there's nice lighting effects that creates the mood a bit, and then also
Mhm.
I do like the audio that they use as well.
Dun
Um,
dun dun.
yes, it's a very suspenseful and builds you up for it, and using the actual icon audio as well. It's a nice touch for a house like that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Surprisingly, this is not on my list. As much as I adore this house and like the facade, I
You like the
just
next room better.
my man's. But no, it really did set the scene. I just had some other ones that beat it.
Fair.
All right. Well, I guess I should do my next one. We're going to stick at HHN 30. We're just going to end up doing basically all the houses HHN 30, or all the good ones that had a decent facade. And that is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I think this facade, speaking of like unique facades that we have never really, style facades that we don't get too often. I think this facade here just really set the mood. It was super scary. Um, I can't list how many times people have like wandered off the beaten path of this facade, especially during like a late run when there's not a conga line. This facade, I think, really, really blew me away. I did not have much expectations for this house. I think the house ended up being amazing, and I think one of the main reasons was this facade really sets the mood.
Mm-hmm.
It's it just blew me away what they were able to build there.
yeah. The funny part is, you look at like Halloween this year, and we're like, oh, they didn't go through the house. But for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I wasn't like, oh, they didn't go through the house. I was like, oh shit, they didn't go through the house. This is cool because
Yeah,
it's a cool facade using the gas
right,
station.
right,
It's
yeah,
very detailed, large too. You felt
yeah,
like you're actually
huge scale.
walking through and around. So yeah, I think it's not the normal approach I would have gone for. But when I saw it, I was like, fuck yes, this was a great decision.
Yeah, I mean, unlike Halloween, where it was like a cold open, where we ended up right in the bedroom.
Mm.
This we still got the facade type feel. We still got the
It was a full
the scale,
facade for
and
sure.
it was a
Yeah.
scale that we level that we're looking for a
Mhm.
breathtaking facade. We just got it an out of the box type of take, and that is what I really liked about it.
Mhm.
Where completely wrapped around. Yeah, it was awesome.
I don't know if many people would describe it like this, but I just describe it as just like every time I walked in there, just beautiful. Like it was so pretty. It was such a pretty facade. Every with all the details and every like it felt like a real gas station. Even though if you knew you were in a sound station, it felt like a real disgusting gas station. But it was so
Mhm.
pretty, and the lighting on the sign, when you walked in, the sign of the barbecue sign or whatnot, it looked like it was like in a movie. Like it didn't look it almost didn't look real. It looked like it was just pulled from not even that particular film, just pulled from. It just felt like it had film lighting, and that's like if I think of HHN 30, that's one of the main images that come in my head. Just walking into that facade straight ahead and seeing just how the sign looks in the dark soundstage. It was just breathtaking.
So was this not on your list?
Oh, this is on my list.
Oh,
This
okay.
is I chose icons because that was near like the bottom, and I was trying to fit like I have a whole bunch of them on this list, and so I'm like, oh, icons of the house I didn't necessarily love, so I'll fit it, with everybody. No, but Texas Chainsaw is like my
Okay. You didn't
like 2 or
clarify
3.
that, but I figured it was on your list.
Oh yeah,
He said it's so pretty. You didn't hear the.
But I do agree. It actually, going slightly off topic, it reminds me of like House of a Thousand Corpses, but if it had an interior facade and could control the setting that much. But
That's a
instead of
good
just
point.
a basic queue in front of that facade, they went all the way and fully put you in.
I almost went with House of a Thousand Corpses but I thought it was cheating a little bit because you had the outside facade and you kind of had that first room.
Interior,
Which,
exterior, combine them. I don't care. They're separate. They're together. However you want to
Because
look
the
at
way
it.
they did that was really cool as well.
The facade starts from the outside, and if you want to include the exterior, that's on you. If you want to include both, it's on you. Go for it.
All right, who's up next?
Speaking of House of a Thousand Corpses, that's my next one.
Hey.
Which is another, like, going into 29, I was not excited for this house. I don't love the movie. I've talked about it before, but I really did end up loving this house by the end of the season. And that facade, just the first night, I remember seeing it all lit up, the fog pumping out of it. It probably rained because it always rained on opening night, so the fog was hanging a little lower. And I just remember walking in and just being like, wow, this is really cool. Like, just all of it, and walking in with the clown scare actor, and then walking in and seeing Captain Spaulding and all of that. That whole beginning scene just really set it, starting from the facade.
Yeah.
You couldn't even see the tent behind it.
No.
The facade was completely blocking.
Yeah, they did amazing.
It was the house. It was the gas. It was. Yeah. Yep.
There have been a couple of decent facades in that location, but none has fully hid the tent like that one.
No, and I loved the Carrie billboard. I really did like that for Scary, but the nothing can beat corpses, honestly.
No. And I'm in the same boat as you, where I think the movie is just kind of not good, but the house is phenomenal, and it really is the facade that puts you right in it immediately, and you're like, oh shit, this is great.
Yeah, I have never had the desire to watch this movie for whatever reason.
You don't have to. It's okay.
But I can enjoy the house and for what it was without having to watch the movie. Most of the time, I will have to go back to the IP if I haven't watched it yet. But this is not one that I have.
You saw the better version already. Remember, this was literally a house before it was a movie. This was built as an HHN house before. So you saw the better.
And it wasn't even just the design too. The design was breathtaking. This is on my list as well. The design was
sorry.
We're basically through Jonathan's list at this point.
Exactly. I've added a lot of extra ones. Don't worry. But not only was the design good, but I think one of the best parts about this facade was the music in the queue. Because it really just put you right into that that world of House of a Thousand Corpses. Because I think one of the best things about that house was the music that followed you through the entire thing. It's one of the things I remember the most of just hearing that, the movie, is, up and down for a lot of people, but I say the music is pretty solid, at least in the context of where it is in the film or whatever. And I think that for the house, it worked really well. And I think getting you put into that vibe already in the queue really helped it just become so much more effective once you entered the house.
Fully agree. I guess I'll go next then.
Yeah,
sure. So I'm going to go back a little bit further this time, finally. And this one is to HHN 24's Dollhouse of the Damned. One, I think it's one of the first. There was actually a same year, that had a similar scale one, but one of the first kind of larger set scales of a facade for a sprung tent. Um, and I think just everything about it, it told you what you're going to experience in the best way possible. The colors, the angles of the house itself, was a full house facade. The like baby body parts, not actual babies, like baby dolls. Um, Full mannequin bodies hanging as well. There's just so much about it that it was a house. It was about dolls, and everything just hit perfectly, and it led you into a great house. So I think that one of the best things a facade can do is set the tone for what you're going to experience, and this is one of those situations where it perfectly set it up, like perfectly.
Yeah, no, I guess I'll probably have to be the one to talk about this because I did experience this house, and I don't believe Jess and Jonathan, you were attending the event by then, correct?
No, I was
No,
not.
but I have seen any video that was available of this, but it really did look fantastic.
Yeah,
So I
it was a
understand why it's on your list.
fantastic outdoor facade. It
Awesome.
was really cool. I thought the house was okay, but I thought the facade was bomb
Mm.
for sure. So yeah, glad you remembered it. And then I have had a hard time remembering some of the ones that
Yeah.
are far back, but
Some
yeah.
are stuck in my
So
head.
yeah,
This is one of them for sure.
yeah, cool. All right, Jonathan, you're up.
Yeah, so I could be safe and pick one that I know is on one of your lists, but I don't want to. I'm instead going to pick one that I know is not on any of your lists. And that is going to Hollywood uh, and talking about their Killer Clowns facade. Because, I mean, I had to. One of my only gripes with our house in Orlando was that you didn't really get the full clown tent facade. I mean, you got a little bit of it. You got, the basics, but you didn't actually get that tent. But Hollywood did. They got the tent. They got the little lights, like sort of sticking out and going across the tent because those are the lights that sort of like rooted the spaceship in place. You have the shadows of the clowns like inside the tent, like sort of like walking by, and getting you prepared for the house ahead. But I mean, the tent itself wouldn't have made this like one of the best facades ever because it's just a tent for to me because it's just a tent. It's pretty easy to make, but it's the fact that every 5 minutes or so they recreated a scene from the movie. They had an actor come out as the farmer from the film and just did the scene like not only did the scene where he's like Pooh Bear, and not only did he just talk, say the lines, but he also even like held the power cords and got zapped, and the whole like tent zapped with him, and then he went back. Like it was crazy how they recreated that. I only got to see that scene happen twice because I only went through the house twice. But it was just being a super huge fan of the movie, being able to see not only the tent and the bushes, but also that scene recreated, um, is forever going to make it like just one of my favorite facades in my heart, even if it's not technically like one of the most advanced facades that have been out there. It appeals to me because I really like the movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more to facades than scale and like how it physically looks, right? So I
Mm.
appreciate that selection. It's not on my list, but I appreciate the selection for sure.
All right, I guess that means it's back to me. So the next one on my list, and my list is in no particular order, but the next one on my list is Fiesta de Chupacabra from
Hmm.
HHN 31. This facade is, when I first experienced it, it was just, I can't, breathtaking, I think is the best way to describe it. It really just transformative. It takes you to a different place, and somehow it's not even the best, the best transformative room in the house, but it still did a damn good job. It really just kind of set like you were in this, village, with the fireworks and stuff going on. It, really set the tone, and what they were able to do with the the scale and everything.
I think if we want to go back to using unique, I think the angle that is trying to show you of
Yes.
the house you're about to approach, like this is the entire village you're about to go into. Here's the outside from beyond like this
Right, the wall
of
and the
what the
angle.
village is.
Exactly.
It was such a unique approach to take to making a facade. Usually it's entering something or something that's directly in front of you rather than this whole village.
Right, and it's also one of those facades that really uses a character there in a unique way. I have a few others that are going to come up there where it really like, this character does a lot of help, but this one as well, also having that character there, really with the the giant mask, just really sets the tone of what you're about to experience. I think, yeah.
This was on my list too, actually.
John.
Yeah, it's just, oh
We've gone
god.
through his entire list.
We all have similar taste. But it's, yeah. I mean, yeah. I have nothing that much to add. Besides the fact that I'd say that forced perspective doesn't always work. In haunted houses and in just theme parks in general. But I think it worked here. I think it really worked here. Where, yeah, you don't know these things aren't as big as you think they, as you think they are. But when you're walking down that path in the facade, like, you feel like, yeah, like it is a humongous village with super, with tall buildings, and this, it feels like, it really does immerse you and get you ready for the experience ahead. And the music, I mean, even the music walking up as you're just going down that long hallway with the black curtains, like it's peppy, and you hear the fireworks, setting off, and you're like, all right, I'm ready for this. Like, I'm excited for this, this party we're gonna have. And then it's like, no, it's not a party, actually. Oops.
Oh,
We
it's a
got tricked.
party, but not for us.
Not for us. But yeah, I really enjoyed this facade, and it's it is. It's almost my favorite from 31. But I'm sure most people had a one facade that was better than this one for 31 as well. But yeah.
Choopy babies. I did not have this on my list, but I understand why you guys do. It was so good. My next one. I don't know if you guys will have this on yours. I actually just talked about it last week, which is kind of fitting. From 28, Seeds of Extinction.
Ooh,
kind of
like
the last time we had like a built out facade at that parade building.
Yeah.
So I just really, I guess kind of like, because a parade building is kind of like that shape of a mall, just having that kind of built out entrance, and it was like all dilapidated, and we had the school bus out there, and with the lighting package and everything, with the green and the plants. I really love that facade. And then even just like the first scene into the house with like everything kind of just like has gone to shit and it's overgrown already just in the first scene. You could kind of tell from outside in the facade. I think about this a lot, actually. I think about Seeds more often than I should. Such a good house.
I mean, I think it's a great facade, but I also just give it a shit ton of points for whether it's a parade warehouse or a soundstage. Just trying a true exterior facade, like not just a projection or plastering a sticker over it or whatever it may be, like a real facade. Like, it takes ambition to try it. And they did, and of course it had to use screen-based effects and shit to still make it work, but there were physical props and it really worked, and you really felt like you were entering the mall.
Yeah. I kind of miss when the parade buildings had actual props outside of them, because even like Ash vs. Evil Dead had the cars.
Yeah, it's true.
And fire, and it just kind of like, I like what they do now with the productions and the vinyls, but like those were really good scene setting facades back in the day.
Will I take Legends Collide over Ash vs. Evil Dead?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I will. But, why not give us both? I'm just saying, give us both.
Mm-hmm.
They won't give us both. It's okay. I get it.
No, they won't. There's no duality.
All right. I guess I'll do the next one. And I think I'm going to go with... There's one I want to change. I'm trying to decide which one. Okay, I'm definitely leaving this one. I'm going to do Winter's Night, The Haunting of Hawthorne Cemetery. And It was a pretty large facade. It had a nice scale for sure, but
Uh-huh.
it wasn't like the most impressive thing in the world. You're basically entering the cemetery. It had the gates, and what was like a hearse off to the side, a vehicle off to the side. But the big thing for me, it's the first time I remember experiencing a fully immersive facade. It was cold as shit. It was snowing. In the facade, it looked like it had a snow covered cemetery that you were entering. Like it was the most immersive facade I'd ever entered to that point in the event. Has that been passed? Yeah, probably. But that was the first time. And getting that taste the first time has had me. That's my expectation now, right? Like that's what I'm expecting, especially at a bigger houses. When you use a soundstage or a warehouse, I'm expecting something like that because of that single house. So is it maybe a top five all time just by looking at it? No. From what it means to me, 1000%.
I respect that. Yeah, that was what 2011, right? What year was
Yeah,
that?
21.
Yeah, 21. So I remember this one. It was really great. It was probably one of the best of that year. Um, it didn't make my list just because a lot of the way out ones just didn't stick into my brain, and some of these more recent ones did. But I respect it for sure. Yeah, it was a very good one. Very similar to one of them that may pop up on my list.
Almost definitely on multiple people's list, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, Jonathan, you're up, I believe.
Oh yes, I always forget who's next. I'm always waiting. It's like, oh, it's my turn.
There's no real
Um,
order.
Yeah, yeah, and if you ran out of them because we've used all of yours, you.
no, I got a couple more. I got a couple more.
Jonathan's going forever.
The thing is, I have one that like has to be on my list. I just always talk about it, so it's not going to be a long discussion. But I have to say it. Obviously, my number, like if I was going to rank them, my number one is going to be Poltergeist. Um, from my first house in 28. The facade, as everyone has mentioned before, and I've mentioned before, is breathtaking. Not only does it, I think the forced perspective really work for the house, and the atmosphere and the music is really well done, but the fact that you walk in and immediately it hurls at you a creative interpretation that you are not expecting. If you go into Poltergeist, you're just expecting the house, like Hollywood. Hollywood just did the house, and you walked in the house, and that's cool. That's a cool facade idea. But the fact Orlando is like, no, 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 we're not doing that. We're not doing what you're thinking. We're actually going to take you in the pool. You're going to even see the hose coming down, where like the water's, like supposed to be coming out, and you're going to go under here. And all these people, this huge, humongous group of people is going to be are going to just be, just put into this tiny hole in this, in this dirt pile. And it's just like, oh my God. Just the creativity of it all. It makes it just like my, it's just one of my favorite. I mean, my favorite for this. It's not in real order, but this one would be my favorite facade. And I kind of talked about with Hill House, the rain, the way that it just put water on you and wind on you, and you were immediately like immersed into it. You weren't just looking at it. You weren't just there. Like you were in the storm, as everything, shit was going down. And for my first ever house I've ever been through, that was kind of terrifying. So yeah, I don't need to talk about it anymore. But Poltergeist.
Yeah, there's only so much we can say about that one. But
Yeah.
good lead in from Winter's Night because that's the immersiveness factor kicking in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, I guess that brings it back to me. My next one, I think we've talked so much about HHN 30. I would be very sad not to talk about my favorite house of that year, and that is Puppet Theater Captive Audience. That outdoor facade of the crumbling opera house, just a I did not expect much for this house. It ended up being my favorite of the year, and it began right at that facade. I thought it was beautiful. Um, I thought the scale was great. It really set the tone of what we were going to get in there, especially in some of the other rooms, of about wow, what they were able to do in a tent like that. It started out at the facade, and it just kind of went from there.
And most importantly, it had an Albert Kane reference.
It did, sure did.
Yeah, it did.
But no, it was beautiful. I think the rubbling decay was portrayed so excellently. It's just one of those things where it set the vibe. You knew exactly what you're going into, and the vibe of the facade and the vibe of the house matched perfectly.
Yeah.
And I love this sort of like, entrance too. You got a little of the entrance hallway where it wasn't, you weren't in the house yet. We're just sort of preparing you. And it felt like you said, it felt like the energy just carried through until you physically entered. And it built up the suspension and the immersiveness of it all. And this is also on my list. I shouldn't have put it on here because I knew I was going to have it. But another one off the list.
Do you even have a list anymore?
No, I think
I do. I have like two more, I think, that are written down. I could probably come up with more.
Jonathan, you can't put every facade you've ever seen on your list and call it a list.
Well, I only put the good ones. I haven't said any bad
I think
ones.
Jonathan and I originally had the same list, and because every time I say one, it was on his list.
Jonathan,
there we go.
How are you going to make a top 10 or top 5 for that matter once you've been going for like 10 years?
Oh God, it's gonna be impossible. It's gonna be I'm probably just gonna stick with my every year there's a house that ends up being my number one. And it just I don't know how it's gonna happen.
Jonathan's fixation house will just be the favorite facade regardless.
That's what happens. That's what happens every single year. It's just whatever the fixation ends up. It's like what this facade's in my or house is in my top 5, and usually the facade's part of that too. Because I mean, Texas Chainsaw, Poltergeist, So, I ended up in here, so yeah. But yeah, who's next? Who's that?
All right. Well, I'll safely say this is the last one on my list, by the way. I don't have a list of 8 more behind me. And this is another one where it is a very good facade, but I don't have it up there just because it's a good facade. And that is HHN 24's Halloween. Where it is the first time I feel we got a full representation of like a large scale IP weenie. It is the location of the film, and we got it built out in person as a facade, and it one looked great. 2, it had also the projection of Michael killing his sister in the window, which looked phenomenal at night. I mean, there's not really much more to add to it. It was just important for that reason, like getting that representation from an IP as its facade. It's like, oh yeah, this is Halloween, all right.
Yeah, no, this one wasn't on my list, but really it should have been because this facade is near and dear to my heart. I think I've talked about it a couple of the times on the show.
Have lunch on the
a couple of times I've had breaks and lunches on the stoop of this. I was working for the event at the time. This facade is just so badass, and it was one of those so good that you're like, oh, you could just keep this. You just roll it out, even if it's not. You could just have this in the park every year.
Just make it Bates Motel.
Exactly. Just make it a seasonal Bates Motel where you just pull out the Myers house and have it in a scare zone randomly. Just overlooking the Fear Factor live stage or some shit. Every year. It was that good.
Hey, Kid Zone's leaving. Just put it back.
Right.
There we go. Boom.
It was so good. Yeah.
Didn't get to see it, but again, have seen the videos. And that was what I wanted for this year, but in a soundstage.
I mean, you got it.
Like
just halfway through the house.
Okay, I wanted to just...
Not the same scale,
okay.
though.
It was a pretty similar scale. I think so. It was big. It was still very big.
It was good, but it wasn't it just wasn't quite the same. I don't know. Maybe it was just the first time type of thing.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Mike, are you proving that you're a size queen when it comes to your Myers houses? Is that what I'm hearing?
I guess so.
Wow, you heard it here first, guys. So, my next one, I have 2 more. They're very expected for me. I did my unexpected one already. So, Scary Tales from 28, The Castle. I can't. It was the first Scary Tales I got to see in person after like seeing it in Art of the Scare and being like, oh my god, scary fairy tales, and then like walking into the soundstage and the witch is flying, and she's got different podiums to go around, and just the castle was blue, which like I don't know, I wasn't expecting that, but it was so striking. And then she was doing her thing, the audio was going, and I was just ready for whatever this storybook was about to take me on. And I loved it.
Yeah, it was my favorite part of the house for sure. That's all.
Yeah, I know.
It was good. It was a very good facade. I'm not knocking the facade whatsoever. It was great.
I know.
The flying element really made it for me.
Yeah.
I think the design itself was beautiful, but that flying element was when that happened. I'm like, it's not on my list. It's probably would be on my honorable mentions. But that's what elevated it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Who has anything?
Did you have any?
I guess it.
I do. I have one more.
Oh, well, then you bust yours off, and
then I guess, right? I guess I'm the one with does everyone just have one more left? Or does someone have two more left? Jonathan may have two.
No, Jonathan, you have one left. You've named 8 already.
Yes. Technically,
he should have 2 more, but just based on. But he's also said that was on my list of like every time.
Every house that's ever.
Well, because I keep having to make new I added a list, so I have like a top 5 or something, but I had a bunch of honorable mentions, like just in case they were on everyone's list, and it was good I did that because I planned ahead.
All right, well, I have one more, and I keep going back and forth between if it's an honorable mention or which one I should go with. And I'm just going to go with Dead Man's Pier and have Graveyard Games as the honorable mention. Those are the 2 that I was going back and forth, which was going to be my 5th. They were both killer facades. I think Dead Man's Pier is just a little bit more unique to something that we haven't seen before, whereas you alluded to Winter's Wake, which is a very similar facade to Graveyard Games. The only thing I think about Graveyard Games that added a little bit of element is that scare right at the beginning with Sid, and that tells the story about and he makes fun of you and he bullies you like you're in high school again. But I think Dead Man's Pier, I think just when you walk into that, I think the only reason why they're both were almost my house of the Graveyard Games was my house of the year. Dead Man's Pier was my house of the year up until about the last night of the event. But I think what makes Dead Man's Pier just make the list over Graveyard Games is that it's just really, really just the scale of everything, and with the cold, it just the storytelling and that statue in the middle and the little town square. It just, I think it's a scale that unlike we've ever seen at HHN, and I think it sets the tone of like that house was like unlike we've ever seen come all together. I think it's probably the most immersive house that we've ever seen at HHN. And I think it started at the facade.
So, I mean, I'll just kind of say it now. Even though it wasn't on my list, it may objectively be the best facade ever at HHN.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, again, weird. Didn't make my list, but can you, if someone were to tell you it's the best facade ever, could you fully put up an argument against that?
No, not at all. I feel like it's in a tier of its own, which is why I didn't even think of it either, to be honest, because it's just kind of like unmatched.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's unfair to put it against some of these.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, I left it off because I want to make it more personal of a list.
Yeah.
And also I knew at least one other person would use it, so I didn't have it.
That's fair.
I mean, it was nearly my favorite year of my house of the year. It was.
It was for me for at least the first month.
Yeah, Chupacabra just that last run, I think, is just what sold me. But it was they were both lockstep 1 and 2, basically the entire year. Those are the 2 standouts.
It's funny you brought up Graveyard Games because the ones who never shut up about it did not mention Graveyard Games, which is Interesting.
I definitely thought it'd be on your list. Otherwise, I might
mean,
have used it.
Yeah.
No, I love it, but it's not my. I love the house for other things. The facade, like, yeah, it starts it, but it's not like the first thing I think of. I guess I was thinking of like houses where the first thing I think of is their facade, and it's like from the start. Let's go.
Gotcha.
Graveyard Games is just my house.
Yeah, I think the thing about the Graveyard Games facade is while it is breathtaking, I like that storytelling element where you get that
Mhm.
character in there but that really draws you in. But yeah, it's also a quite beautiful facade. It really is.
Yeah. Oh, I miss it.
Yeah.
But it's funny you're talking about 31 because my last one is also from 31. And it was the thing that replaced Dead Man's as my house of the year towards the end of the event. It's Legends Collide because
I figured someone would say that.
There it is.
there's a whole fucking whatever that is. Whatever it is, the big statue. What was the statue? What's it called? The big one.
The statue of Anubis.
Anubis?
That one, Anubis. I couldn't think of his name. You had a big ass Anubis when you walked in. And it, like, the more you looked at the facade, like everybody knows, the more you could find the Wolfman changing.
Yeah.
And just there was the stretcher from Nightingales and like little things and little Easter eggs and stuff like that. And the sand, there was like tactile things you weren't supposed to touch, but we all put our hands in the sand. Come on.
No.
Don't even, Duff. Don't even. I just really love this facade, and it didn't need to like set up any kind of suspense for me. I just wanted to gawk at it the whole time.
But at the same time, it also had obviously good scale, but moving parts
Mhm.
with,
Yeah.
the transformation of Wolfman.
Yeah.
The lighting, there was a lot
The
to it
movement.
outside of just being, oh, this is pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same
It's
time, it was
so
also just pretty.
It was so good. I love parade building houses and facades. I just love the parade buildings. Like, I really do.
Yeah, I'm with you. Parade warehouses and sprung tents, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this facade was beautiful. It was definitely probably of that year, probably my third favorite for sure, but a very close third. Those three facades, you really, they're dealer's choice of which one you want to go with. They're all great.
Also,
And it felt like that facade carried on with you too. You had the statue, whatever, but all the stuff happening above the statue, all of the stuff, building upwards continued on throughout the house. So you never while, the front of it felt like, I don't know how to explain this, while you did leave that area, it felt like you never truly left that area because like parts of it are always sort of like following you.
Right.
not to drag this out any further, but I'm going to just a tad. Even going out to the exterior facade, yes, it was a vinyl out there, but that music they were pumping carried you all the way through the end of the house. It started right there, right at that moment. I can hear it in my head every night I go to sleep. So, just want to point that out.
All right, Jonathan, that means you probably have one left, right?
I do have
bring
one
us home.
left.
He actually has 8 left, but we're limiting.
No, stop! I prepared, and I was right for preparing. So there's one personal, and then there's one I think more it's not objective, but one that's like more of a facade. I'm gonna call the personal one an honorable mention, and the one that's like more objective, my real one. And my real one would be Scarecrow. In Hollywood. I think that facade was. I mean, we were all seeing it built. For a long time. We everyone was looking at it on Twitter being built and built and built, and even in and I even saw it, the whole thing built, before I actually went. But seeing it in person, I couldn't comprehend how actually big it was. Comparing my size to the actual facade, how intense it looked with all the crows and the detail on the facade, the way it looked weathered down, the plants, the lighting on it, the music that carried behind it, it was great. It set the mood perfectly. And even having the little sign next to it, like the foreclosure, get out of the house, that sort of setting up the story of, of nature sort of like kicking everyone out, was a really nice touch. And I think that was it was just an amazing facade. It's one of my favorites. But my personal one is one that's barely even a facade. And it's a sticker on a parade building that has the Weeknd's face on it 3 times. And the reason it's like an honorable mention, but it's still one that I think of very fondly, is not because of the look of it at all. Like the projections on the actual vinyl were cool, but that's not even why it'd be on this list. It's the fact that it had the lighting of like a concert and the music that carried throughout the entire queue. I've waited in long lines for that thing. And sometimes, like when I wait in too long of a line and the loop happens twice, it gets a little annoying. But I think that only happened once. Most of the time in that queue, it flew by because the music like just passed the time. Everyone was singing along to it. It just felt like it was a big party and really got you ready for the house. And I've never experienced something that like kinetic before, like entering a house before, that like everyone was like on the same page of like, hey, this is good music, we like this, and it turned into like a party. And then you enter the house and all of a sudden you get the sudden pow, like actually, you were just having a party outside. This is not that. In fact, this house is actually going to tend to be more scary, tend to be more serious. And it also solidified the fact of like everyone was expecting a lot of people said Weeknd was the party house, and in some ways I agree to an extent, but that main like jolt of straight from like playing, I don't know, like In Your Eyes or Blinding Lights to the weird as fuck and like demented remix of Die For You in the facade, and like not the facade, in the entrance of the house, was just like perfect, absolutely perfect, and it was the jolt the house needed. So yeah, that's my honorable mention, and yeah, I like them. They're good. They're good facades.
I do appreciate how you chose such a personal thing. And also, it was a massive sing along karaoke moment in that queue.
Oh yeah.
Even though I spent very little time in it, Express. But Scarecrow probably is my favorite Hollywood facade I've ever seen, I think.
Ooh.
Agreed there.
All right. Does anyone have anything else to add?
Absolutely not.
We love facades.
Facades are great.
Facades are good.
Keep making great facades.
It's been a long ass
You're
show.
doing great.
All right. Well,
actual facades,
yeah, we have a
opens,
bunch of stuff coming up.
Yeah, real quick. Today, the 21st that it launches, HHN Live. I'm sorry, sorry, I got two separate things confused because we have so many things. HHN 36 Live.
Yeah.
Live at Universal Studios Florida on TikTok Live or in person at 5 p.m. today, the 21st of March.
Yeah.
We have our trivia coming up. The live trivia at Half Bro Beer Project, April 8th at 8 p.m. And then also, of course, the merch launch.
Yeah.
Today, again,
Today,
March 21st
brand new merch.
at noon.
Check the shop out at hhn365.com.
Yep.
And then you can always find us at Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at HHN365 and at TikTok at HHN365 pod. Our Discord is in the description. You can leave us a voicemail at 407-906-4134, and we'll see you in the streets.